Good afternoon, Councillor Hawthorne, and thank you for coming into the GFM studio to spare some time to talk to us. One of the things that, before we get going, we're a community radio station and we like to provide lots of information to the BME community in particular, because that's where we're located in the Barton Treadworth community. But it would be really useful, before we start getting going, if you could just give us an outline what exactly is your role is, because you're leader of the county council, but for some that doesn't actually mean much.
Well, I guess it's the county council obviously is the upper tier authority within Gloucestershire. So many will probably be more familiar with Gloucester City Council. That's the council that's responsible for collecting your rubbish, cleaning your streets, the ones that are probably very visible on your doorstep services. The County Council is the upper tier authority responsible for services right across Gloucestershire, so all the 6 districts in the county. And we very much focus on different types of services. We do a lot of social care, is our biggest area of spend. We're linked in with schools. We get rid of the waste once the authorities locally have collected them. So we've got some high-level services that we deliver. But at the end of the day, we spend gross about £1 billion public sector money across the county, net about 420 million. So big business, big part of your lives, probably just not the ones that you visibly see every day. You probably only know us for potholes. So so that's what we do.
Okay, and your role as leader of that county council?
Well, obviously the role of leader of the county council is very much about setting the political and strategic direction as an organisation we're going in, and very much then as part of that making sure that everyone's aware of what we're trying to achieve, the changes that we're trying to bring in, and very much fronting those changes up in the public's mind. So quite a hectic time, I can say, at the moment. We're very busy, lots going on, some huge challenges, but I think some really big opportunities as well. But that's my job, that's what I do every day. Okay,
which takes us very swiftly on to the government spending review. What that means for locally for here for people in Gloucester?
I think the key thing here is we're facing one of the biggest economic challenges that we've ever faced in a generation. Lots of people argue nationally about, should we be cutting as fast as we are cutting? But politically, across the spectrum, there is general agreement that we need to reduce public expenditure. The rate of which is being reduced, obviously, the national politicians are debating. For us in Gloucestershire, the challenge is that from next year the cheque will simply get smaller, and it will get smaller every single year for the next 4 years, and that's a huge challenge. We're looking at £108 million worth of savings over 4 years. That's out of a £420 million net budget. It's a huge amount of money to save. And one of the reasons we face this challenge not only is the cheque from government getting smaller, the pressures on our services are getting bigger. And our biggest spend area is adult social care, particularly elderly care, and the rate in which the population is getting older is about 4% a year. That's not going to go away. We need to tackle that. So that's what presents us with this huge challenge, £108 million that we need to save. And that, at the end of the day, is going to mean radical changes. And the way I say it is, look at it this way. If you're in your household and you lose 5% of your income, yeah, that's going to be tough. But you can manage that. You might change your margarine brand. You might look at, maybe not going on holiday this year. There are lots of things that you can do to try and save that money. But when you're faced with 30% reduction, as many families were during the recent recession, and I know many of those families that had to face those tough decisions, you have to suddenly face some real lifestyle changes. And you have to fundamentally look at everything you do and say, what do I actually need to have? What are the nice things to have that actually in this world I can no longer afford? And that's very much what we're doing on the County Council. What are the services that are really important? What are the ones we really need to deliver? And what are the ones that maybe we can deliver in a different way? So that's where we are.
Okay, so you're considering what are going to be the priorities then for spending in the next 4 years? Is that what you said, the next 4 years? Okay, so have you begun to do the work around deciding on what those priorities are going to be for the next
We did a huge consultation in September called Meeting the Challenge. And this was very much about asking the people, say, look, okay, 30% less, we need to make some radical changes. In a world where we have less money, what are the need-to-have services? What are the real key focuses that we need to make sure that we protect? What are the areas that maybe that we could look at reduce or stopping? That was a huge consultation, very focused, because people had to make a choice. It wasn't any situation where people were just writing, actually, I think I like this service over here. I don't really have an opinion where you should cut. But in this, they had to go on an online budget simulator where they had to make the savings before they were allowed to log out. They'd go to road shows which they got the green, yellow and red stickers. They had to make choices. And the message that came out of that, after over 5,000 people participated, was, look, our top two priorities are adult social care, protecting the most vulnerable in our society, people with learning disabilities, and protecting young vulnerable people. Those were the areas people said, look, those are the ones that really matter. The most vulnerable must be protected through these changes. And so we've pretty much based what we've done around that public consultation, probably reflected how we were feeling as well as councillors, but we very much based our response on that. Those are the areas we need to protect, and other areas we need to look at different ways of delivering services.
Okay. Now, some of the headline news around those cuts, obviously, because the newspapers have been reporting, I think it was since last week, we've seen headlines around cuts to the library and the youth services. Could you, you've already given us an outline of some of the cuts and some of the proposed plans today. Those are they proposed plans, or are they plans that are now set in concrete? Well,
Cabinet's agreed now the consultation period, and the medium-term financial strategy will be signed off in February. I think if we take both of those areas that have had so much public attention, libraries, first thing we said, look, we really believe that there's an important library service to be had, but we need to live in a world where we have 30% less. So let's reshape our library service to reflect that different world. So what we've said is we've got a 9 core library service across the county. That's 6 days a week, providing many more services than they do today. We've got the library expresses, which is, okay, we want to keep these libraries going, but they're going to be smaller, less opening hours, but they're still there in communities that people can still access library services. We've got our virtual library, the 24-hour library service, so a huge increase in what we offer online. So anyone can order a book anywhere in the county. They've got an internet connection and get it dropped off, and they can pick that up. And then we've got our community library offer, which is 11 libraries which we're talking to the community about delivering. Now, I'll tell you now, we've had some really good conversations before we made the announcement and since we've made the announcement with communities right across the county. So we've had conversations in the Forest, we've had conversations in Cotswolds, we're having conversations in Gloucester and Cheltenham about some of those libraries that are affected. And while people obviously are understandably upset that there are changes happening, many people are saying, okay, right, how do we make this work for us? We've put offer on the table, there's money, there's cash to make it happen. I do believe there is no need for any of those libraries to close, and I believe we'll get an agreement in place to actually deliver those in a different way. Now, moving on to youth, which again is one of the areas that is very controversial, and I accept that. We are making some radical changes there. What we've said is, look, we have 2 types of youth service we provide today. The first one is about intervention. It's about helping vulnerable kids. It's about making sure that we pick up those kids, working with schools, through Astra, through CAFs, identifying those that could be at risk of having to go into care, working with them so we help those vulnerable children move from being teenagers into adulthood. Really important job there, because not only is it about making sure that the most vulnerable in society are protected, but it's also about making sure that we nip those issues early so that we don't allow those people to become problem adults. We've actually helped them get into a good position in adulthood. That's really important. So that's one area of the business, and we're actually saying we want to increase spending there by 70%. We think we could do more there. The second part of what we do is around general youth provision. Now, general youth provision is something we've historically been involved in since the 50s, the 60s and 70s. It's your old-fashioned youth building, youth activities. If you're in an area that's got one, that's great. If you're not in an area that's got one, then tough. We haven't really expanded that in many years. And what we're saying is, when we look at the cost of us providing that service, and look at the percentage of people that we're actually providing that service to. Not only is it disproportionately spread across the county, it's actually not good value for money. You know, half our costs in youth go into buildings. You know, that's not a good place to be. And what we're saying is, look, we don't think we're best placed to be in general youth provision, but we want to make sure it continues. How can we work with communities, the voluntary sector, people that are already out there delivering this? 71% of kids are involved in after-school activities. 70% of them have got nothing to do with the county youth service. There is an offering out there, and we need to help expand and deliver that in a different way. So yeah, we are coming out of general youth provision, but we are putting money in place to help the voluntary sector step up. It's interesting, I was talking to the Scouts and the guides the other day, and they told me an amazing statistic. You know, they support 10,000 kids across the county with 2,000 volunteers, giving 1 million hours worth of voluntary help each year. That's an amazing stat that just proves there are people out there that are ready, willing and able to do this.